I think I have policy.
Good evening, everyone. Just in case there is anyone signed up for public comment tonight, if you could make sure that you're signed in. There's sign-in sheets on either side of the room. If we have parents or families that are wanting to speak that have not signed up yet. And I also wanted to make a note that if you are interested in hearing just some commentary about recent events that have taken place in our schools, that I'll do so during the superintendent items from the superintendent part of the agenda.
Thank you. All right. Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our October 23rd meeting of the Ames Community School District Board of Directors. I will call the meeting to order and entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second. Moved by Beerbaum, seconded by Winfrey. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0. And we will now pull our mission statement up on the screen and would invite everyone to take a moment to read it. All right. The first agenda item this evening is our celebrations and recognitions. And this evening we are recognizing the Opus Honor Choirs. And I'll turn it over to Director Amy DeLashman.
Good evening, board and guests. Thank you for being here tonight. We had 5 Ames Community School District students who were recently selected for participation in the 37th annual Opus Honor Choir Festival. Over 2,400 students were nominated by their directors for 720 positions in the 4 Opus Honor choirs. Selections were made by means of an audition. When I say your name, if you'll please stand up. Parker Virgil is a 6th grader and is in the 5th and 6th grade honor choir. Vivian Gassman, Zoe Johnson, Lyda Teskey. They are all in the 7th grade and 8th grade treble honor choir. And Haley Meissner is in the 9th grade mixed choir. I also want to recognize the teachers that are here who have worked with these students. Joe Strong and Sonia Johnson, if you could stand up from Ames High School, and Claire DeVos from Ames Middle School. These are the teachers who have been working with these students. Guest conductors of the choirs include Tammy Miners, Carroll Community School District for the 5th and 6th grade honor choir. Thad Wilkins from Mount Vernon Community Schools is the 7th and 8th grade bass clef honor choir. Abby Shepard from Sioux City Community Schools is the 7th and 8th grade treble clef honor choir conductor. And Matt Walker from Iowa City Community School District is the 9th grade mixed honor choir director. The 2023 Opus Honor Choirs will perform at 4 p.m. on November 16th. Mark your calendars if you would like to go watch. In C.Y. Stevens Auditorium at the Iowa State Center in Ames. The Opus Honor Choir Festival is made possible by the Iowa Choral Directors Association Incorporated. Congratulations to these Ames Community School District music ambassadors. We are very proud.
Thank you all for taking the time to come this evening. It's always really lovely for us to get to start our meeting with celebrations and recognitions. And we are so proud of all of you and how wonderfully you are representing our district. And thank you, teachers, as well. All right, next on our agenda this evening is our discussion items, and we'll begin with our board committee updates, starting with the facilities committee.
I think everything's really pretty much covered. We had a meeting last October 11th, and everything is covered in the meeting minutes, and we will have obviously in a little bit of a discussion item that I think we'll cover most of it with the Ames Center. So.
Great, thank you. Any questions or comments for facilities committee? Okay, policy committee.
We met on October 12th, and the minutes are pretty detailed, and we'll talk about the specifics up for discussion in a minute.
Great. And teaching and learning.
Well, I'm going to be repetitive, but our minutes are also attached and they're very thorough this month. So I would encourage anyone interested to talk about them. Just briefly, we had some updates on the ruler implementation. The strategic plan implementation as relates to teaching and learning, and then some new course proposals, intro to psychology and another orchestra course. So.
Awesome. Thank you. Any questions or comments for teaching and learning? All right. We will move on to our policies for discussion.
I'll say most of the things that are up here, and Chris might be able to answer some questions if you have questions about any of the specific policies. Most of these are pretty directly modeled from IASB, and we have a couple new policies like the fiscal management policy. Maybe that's the only one new that's up for, yes, that's the only one we're discussing. And then there were some changes related to changes in state law about the deadline to file our approved budget. So that created a couple changes, but I don't think there was anything too significant that we're voting on today or that we're discussing today. But if you have questions, you can ask me or Chris if it has the word budget in it.
I do have some questions. So it seems that we are now in the budget section of the policy handbook or of the policies. I guess that's.
There are all the policies that were my purview to review this
I
year,
see.
and for some reason they wanted me to get them done before the last policy meeting.
Okay. So we happen to be doing the Chris section because we have Chris.
Yes.
Well
said.
That makes sense. Yeah, I was wondering if we were going to be seeing more of these or not. So one of the things that I have been wondering as a member of the Budget and Audit Committee is how frequent, so it's as I've read through the list of instructions about the purview of the Budget and Audit Committee, it's unclear to me how much of it is supposed to be board directed versus CFO directed on the Budget and Audit Committee, either in policy or in sort of norms of the board. I'm not,
I'd say that I think that goes to the policy on committees, right?
Right.
Is that
well,
which is not what we're discussing.
I don't know. I mean,
They're kind of intertwined.
Right.
The policy on committees sets those type of parameters. This establishes the membership of the audit committee.
Well, I'm sorry if I'm asking something about a policy a different policy. Yeah, I have been, as a member of the committee, I've been confused about the extent to which responsibilities. So in my time on the board, it has met once per year, at least in my, yeah.
We usually meet at least twice, once after certified enrollment and once after audit field work. Audit field work is really late this year. They're starting Monday.
Okay.
There's a lot of things going on with school audits right now and not having enough audit firms to do school audits. And we usually wait until the end of October to make sure that everything settles out on certified enrollment before releasing those numbers, because the state now is comparing district to district, and sometimes things shift between. Everything had to be certified by October 15th, but they take the next couple of weeks then to shake everything out and make sure the right districts.
Yeah. Okay. So am I wrong that we met just once last year? Did we meet twice? I believe we met just November 7th, 2022.
Maybe it was the same thing. When the members want to meet with the auditors, that's not an open meeting, so it can't be a meeting of the budget and audit committee.
I see.
I'd say that maybe since there's probably a meeting coming up, right? After the certified enrollment, that maybe this is something to add to that agenda. I just worry we're getting a little off the agenda.
Yeah, okay, yeah, that's fine. No, that's fine. I am particularly curious to figure out where the role of the board is in this particular committee and what the board's norms are, as well as what policy says it should be.
Yeah. And I'll find that policy too, just so you know.
Okay.
I think we voted on it a few months ago. Right.
I do recall that. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's clearly a combination.
Yeah, sorry, I don't want to make sure that we're not having side conversations too, but anything else to add?
No.
To that? Okay. All right. Any other questions or comments on the policies for discussion? All right, then we will move on to our teaching and learning update, and we'll begin with our the National FFA organization. And we'll turn it over to Director Erin Miller and her team.
Good evening, school board members. My name is Autumn Wild and this is Nicole Ross. And we are here tonight to present to you about the advancements that the Ames High Agricultural Education Program and the Ames FFA chapter have made in the past 5 years.
The Ames FFA and Agriculture Program has experienced tremendous growth in the past 5 years. Our presentation will lead you through our program of activities, data on student participation in FFA, our program's recent successes, preparing students for college and career readiness, benefits to graduates, any challenges our chapter may be facing, and ways the school board and community members can support our chapter and program.
Each FFA chapter has a program of activities, and these POAs are split into 3 student-led committees that guide the planning, preparation, and delivery of the activities within our chapter. Growing Leaders is the first student-led committee, and Growing Leaders is defined as leadership, healthy lifestyle, scholarship, personal growth, and career success. Our Growing Leaders Committee has demonstrated these standards through participating in various conferences, competitions, and leadership activities throughout the year. Each winter, the Ames FFA chapter participates in legislative symposium, where members from across the state gather at the Capitol to learn about the legislative process, discuss agricultural issues, and advocate for agricultural education and FFA.
Building Communities is the second committee focused on the well-being of the environment, human resources, citizenship, stakeholder engagement, and economic development. The Building Communities Committee has worked really hard on expanding our involvement with the community. We have hosted a teacher appreciation breakfast. We planted flowers at the Welcome to Ames sign located across from Hilton Coliseum, and we also packaged 400 meals for those in need.
Strengthening Agriculture is the final committee within a chapter's POA. This committee focuses on the chapter support group, chapter recruitment, safety, agricultural advocacy, and agricultural literacy. Our Strengthening Agriculture Committee has worked hard to develop programs that will help us educate and connect with community members. One program that we've been building over the past year is the Friends of the Ames FFA. This group helps to garner support from our community, raise funds for chapter activities and scholarships, assist at chapter events, and much, much more.
Program data at the local level is shown here on the screen. The data is based off of the 22 to 2023 school year. At the time the data was drawn, there was 225 students enrolled in the agriculture program, with an average of 9% of those students being in FFA. That comes out to a total of 21 FFA members. Each active FFA member must be enrolled in a minimum of 1 agriculture class per year. In the 2022 to 2023 year, the chapter gained 3 members. In the 2023 to 2024 year, the Ames FFA is projected to have 30 members with a total of 249 students enrolled in the agriculture program.
The National FFA organization is one of the largest student-run organizations in the country, and the state of Iowa continues to see an increase in membership. The Iowa FFA Association currently has just under 19,000 student members across 254 chapters. The Iowa FFA Association averages 3 new chapters each year and about 1,000 new student members each year.
The past 5 years, the Ames FFA has experienced many accomplishments. We don't have time to list them all for you, so I'll just highlight a few. We have had 7 competitions compete at the state level in a very successful yearly banquet, and average about $5,000 raised each year in fruit sales alone. We have had a festive fall parade each year during the homecoming parade, and 4 of our members from our chapter have received their Iowa FFA degree.
Our program as a whole has focused a lot on growth in the last 5 years, and the agriculture program has seen a continuous upward trend in student enrollment. However, the personal education growth of our students is a bit limited. On this slide are the 11 classes students have the option to sign up for each spring. On the next slide, 5 of the 11 classes are crossed out. These are classes that have only been offered one time in the past 5 years. Each semester, the agriculture program has multiple class periods of our introductory level courses. And although it's great that we continuously have students interested in our intro courses, the downside is that we are unable to offer most of our advanced level courses that would allow students to expand upon the topics that they learned in these intro level courses.
FFA has a positive effect on students during high school that continues to carry on with them after graduation. Agriculture Experience Tracker, AET, is a tool students use to help track their SAE, which is a supervised agriculture experience, which is a structured opportunity for students to gain hands-on work experience in the agriculture field based outside of class only on their interests. According to the National FFA, collectively, FFA members earn more than $4 billion annually through their hands-on work experiences. In 2016, 126 sponsors provided more than 1,820 individual scholarships alone. That does not count local scholarships. Listed above are just a few of the graduation benefits that members of our chapter have experienced. Multiple members have received scholarships through varieties of different companies, including the Iowa Pork Producers, the Farm Bureau, and even an internship through Landis. Members also benefit by developing a large array of skills by working on their SAE. Members have the opportunity to build connections by meeting people from different districts and state at competitions and conferences. FFA offers over 28 different competitions that help improve public speaking skills, confidence, teamwork, and many more life skills.
Our chapter has experienced tremendous growth in the last 5 years, and we continue to grow more every day. But we're still in need of support from the community. One way that interested staff and school board members can support us is to share your ideas. Being that we are still a young program, we would greatly appreciate to discuss any new ideas that you may have for our agricultural education program or our chapter. Another way for interested community members to support us is to join our alumni chapter. The Friends of the Ames FFA is not just limited to previous FFA members. Any community member that believes that they may be able to help support our chapter is welcome to join. And the final way that community members can support us is to spread the word about the many amazing opportunities that the Ames FFA chapter provides to its members.
Thank you, school board members. We hope you enjoyed our presentation. If you are interested in staying up to date with the exciting things happening in our FFA chapter and our agriculture program, please follow our social medias.
Thank you both. You did an awesome job presenting to us. I know that can be really intimidating, and you did a fantastic job. Do we have questions or comments for our presenters?
I say thank you for sharing all of that. I don't know a ton about FFA, so I appreciate the breadth of what you shared. And it clearly public speaking skills have obviously.
Thank you.
Haven't always been right.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Have a great rest of your evening. Thank you. We so appreciate you coming. And next on our teaching and learning agenda item is the LAU plan update. We'll turn it over to Erin Miller and Shaylee Santiago.
Got the wrong. I think the wrong thing's attached to the agenda. It is?
I see.
Oh,
Are you online?
yeah, I got it now. It's that's
Sometimes,
weird.
yeah, sometimes the attachments don't refresh for me if I'm having connection issues.
That's
All right. Go right
Thank
ahead.
you. I'm here to talk with you tonight about the LAO plan. The LAO plan is our document that guides our EL programming or English learner programming. Just a quick reminder, the current version of the LAO plan is always available on the district website on the EL page. Each year we meet to review the plan, and so that meeting will be coming up in early November. So if you go to the website right now, you'll see last year's plan. But there will be changes that are made and then we'll get it updated. The other thing I want to say about the plan that's on the website currently, we do have it translated into 6 languages in addition to English. So it's kind of the top 6. So their links are right there on the LAO plan itself. So let's talk a little bit about what is the LAO plan. There we go. The name of it comes from a Supreme Court case, Lau v. Nichols. This was a case in 1974 involving a student in San Francisco Unified School District whose name was Kenny Lau. And he represented 2,856 students that graduated from the school system. The parents were concerned about the skills that the students had when they graduated, or rather the lack of skills. And so that was kind of the court case that defined a lot of what the requirements are for English learner programs, starting with the fact that we have a plan, which we refer to as the LAO plan. Basically, the LAO plan describes the language instruction educational program, or LEAP, because we love our acronyms, right? So the plan lays out the goals of English learner programming, the standards that are referenced, which are the English language proficiency standards, the staff that are involved, which goes beyond just our English learner teachers. There are other staff that are also part of providing the language instruction educational program. What the program models that we use and the curricular resources, as well as how we provide professional development related to it. And so there are guidelines that we get through the federal government and the state about what all is included in the plan. However, in Ames, we use the opportunity of the review time to focus on some other areas of learning as well. And so our review meeting in early November will focus kind of on some of the details within the plan. And then in the spring, we'll come back and revisit our learning focus. But before I get into that, one other thing we always do in the LAO plan meetings is review some key data. So I wanted to share just kind of a snapshot for you of some key points of our English learners. As of early October, and so this isn't the certified official count, but it's going to be really, really close. We had 307 English learners in Ames schools, which is about 6% of our K-12 enrollment. And that's about where we've been percentage-wise the last several years. It's been slowly inching up. We were at 5% at one point in time. This number from last year at the same time is slightly higher. So the number of students in the EL program is just a little bit higher than it was a year ago. I also always like to call out within the EL program itself, there are 36 different home languages that are represented. And comparison in our district overall, 61 languages plus English, so 62 grand total. So within the EL program, which in case you're not familiar, it's just K-12. We don't identify preschool students. We mark them as potential or pending, but they don't get officially identified until they're in kindergarten. And so within that population, there are 5 home languages with 10 or more English learners. So I've broken those stats out for you on this slide. As in previous years, Spanish would be the highest. So we had about 152 students, or approximately 50% of the students in our EL program have Spanish as their home language. The next highest group is Arabic, with 48 students, around almost 17% of the EL program. And then Chinese is the 3rd most frequent language, followed by Dinka. And for the first time in our top 5, Russian made the cut this year. So both of those have about 10 students, so approximately 3%. So slight change. Spanish continues to inch up. Last year, the percentage in the EL program was around 44% of our English learners spoke Spanish as their home language. Arabic was 15%, and then Chinese and Dinka. And as I alluded to already, Russian wasn't in the top 5. So reflective of world events. So this year for the LAO plan, and actually it's continuing on from last year, our focus for our learning is around family engagement. And so when we say family engagement, really, we're just talking about how we involve families and community members in the educational process. It is a guiding principle of our LAO plan, and part of guidance from the federal government encourages us to continue to focus on that. We have notification requirements and other parts that are built into the reporting that we do anyway. But working to strengthen how we engage families in the program has been a focus for this past school year. So this year, when we're looking at the learning in the spring, when we have our follow-up meetings, we are working to give staff and community members opportunities to think about how, specific things that are happening at their school building related to English learner family engagement. And so that's kind of where we're continuing from the learning we did last year, building on that to actually try to move it to implementation at building level. We also do some things as a district-wide program as well. Partnerships with the Ames Public Library would be one example from past years. On the next slide, I'm going to talk just a little bit about some of our assessment data related to English language proficiency. And this is another piece of data that we often look at when we're doing the LAO plan review. And so a couple things to know about this slide when we're talking about students meeting exit criteria to exit the English learner program. The indicator for that is they should test proficient on our summative English language proficiency assessment, also known as the ELPA 21. And so here's the kind of the running stats from the past 5 school years with the number of students exited and what percentage that works out to be. So you can kind of see what the trend has been over the past years. So this past spring, we had 47 students meet exit criteria. And I should also mention that last year was the first year for the ALT ELPA, which is specifically for students with IEPs, usually those who would be dynamic learners. So taking alternate assessments, like they wouldn't take the ISAS, they do the DLM, Dynamic Learning Map. I believe that's what that acronym is. So ALT ELPA was brand new this year. The scores actually just came out today. And so my report doesn't reflect that, but we did have 6 students take the ALT ELPA. So next year I'll be able to include those stats, but it was so new that they only released scores literally today. So 47 students met exit criteria on our regular ELPA 21 test. And we want to dig into that figure just a little bit more and give you a breakdown. So first, kind of for the district overall, we had 284 students who took the ELPA last spring. And you can see the breakdown who was proficient in the green. So that equates to domain scores in listening, reading, speaking, and writing of 4s or 5s. That's considered proficient. Emerging, the red, I'll go to the other side first. Those would be domain scores of only 1s and 2s. So if you get anything higher than 2, if you have at least 1, 3, you're considered progressing, which is that bigger section of yellow in the middle. And so this is kind of a snapshot of our district overall, K-12, where our students performed this last school year. So let's go deeper, break it down by elementary first. And you'll notice that I'm giving you grade levels. So we collapsed all 5 elementaries into one. In the middle, you'll see the number. So we had 45 kindergartners who took the ELPA, 34 in first grade, and then it goes down from there. So one thing to notice is we always have more students in kindergarten and first grade. The hope is they become proficient and they meet exit criteria. And then going up from there, the numbers become smaller. But along the way, of course, we have students at all ages and grade levels enrolling with us. So it's this constantly changing group of students, right? But here you see the five grade levels, how many students in each grade level, and then the percentage breakdown, who was proficient, progressing, emerging, et cetera. So at elementary level, we had 33 that met the exit criteria this past spring. For the You notice the numbers are a bit smaller. And again, you can see the percentages, how many at each grade level were progressing, proficient, or emerging. And then for the high school, similar slide, 4 grade levels, how many at each grade level, and again, the percentage breakdown of proficient, progressing, emerging.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So how does that impact graduation if they're not proficient?
As long as they've met graduation requirements, they still graduate from Ames High. So we do have students who are graduating that are not yet proficient on the ELPA. A lot of times, you know, it can vary. Sometimes the students can function quite well. It might just be like reading or writing where they're not yet proficient on the ELPA. So a lot of times then if they go on to like a community college or even Iowa State, they may need to take some leveling courses before they get into some of the requirements for their degree.
And then do you know how what's the average? I don't ask this question. So what's the average number of years that someone's in the program before they become proficient?
Yeah, so that's an excellent question. When we talk about language acquisition overall, the research would suggest anywhere from 5 to 7 years, and there are lots of different factors that play into that. Our local statistics, it's somewhere around 2 to 3 years is our average for students being able to exit the program here in Ames. Of course, like I was saying before, there's lots of mobility involved, and so it's not the same cohort necessarily from one year to the next, and different factors about a student's background. Students will come to us. Some of them test progressing. They're on the cusp of being proficient when they first arrive, and others are starting almost from the very beginning. So we've got the whole gamut.
Do we have a benchmark that we're aiming for, or a statewide percentage that is usually like seen as, I don't know, maybe not best practice, but something that we're aiming for, a goal or benchmark or whatever?
Sure. So the state has a target based on the ESSA plan, and that's reflected in this Iowa School Performance Profile, which my understanding is that data is about to be released.
Right.
And so if you look at the school performance profile, one of the categories is growth on the ELPA. So they focus more for that one on if a student's making progress versus who's proficient or what percentages for proficient. But there would be a target in some of that. And I hate to say off the top of my head exactly what that is. In Ames, we tend to be kind of right around. Some years we're like out the state average or higher, and other years maybe we're just under. So the school performance profile would be where I'd point you to find specifics about that.
I was going to ask the questions for asking questions.
Sure.
On slide 5, I was curious about the percentage difference between 21-22 and 22-23. Looked like we had a great year in terms of exiting the program in 21-22 and then slid back down. So is there any thought, is it related to some students taking this different test, or is it any idea of why that is?
Sure. So in the 2021 school year, let's see, I've got to think about this the right way. So the pandemic, right? And recovery from the pandemic would fall into some of this. So it was spring of 20, we shut down, we had completed testing. Then in the 2020-21 school year, when we had 55 students that exited, not all the students took the test that year because you might remember it was that year where we're back, we're not, optional or not. And so same thing with taking the ELPA, not all of our students took the ELPA. And then that following year, we felt like 21-22 was really kind of a peak because we were back in school full time, like things were quote back to normal. And so we saw a lot of increase then. I think the previous year that we had students that maybe they didn't have as many opportunities to speak. And so the speaking scores actually took a dip, and typically it's speaking doesn't go down. Like that's one of the areas we see the students progress the fastest in. And so for whatever reason, I think probably pandemic related, the scores had been a little lower in speaking, and then in that 21-22 year,
People kind of caught, there was some.
yeah. And so I feel like this last spring, it was more of a, we were kind of back to the usual sort of thing. The other, my other hunch about what might be impacting it is we've had more new students coming in. And so our numbers were somewhat more like stagnant in the 21-22 school year even. And so now we've got more students that are coming in brand new, maybe with emerging, they don't speak a whole lot of English. Some of them have larger gaps in education. And so I think that's probably factored in.
Okay.
If you look back to 18-19,
Yeah.
we're really very close to that. So it'll be interesting to see what happens this school year.
Thanks.
Yeah.
So is the alt alpha supposed to be harder or easier? Or?
The alt alpha is different in the sense that the items are designed connected to standards that are adjusted to meet needs of students that may not, like students maybe who can't speak or who have other cognitive issues.
Okay.
And so it's designed differently. The way it's administered is quite a bit different. And this last year was our first year to do it. And so they were setting standards and everything. So we're still kind of trying to figure, even how the scores came back. Honestly, I've got to go read the score report manual because it's a bit different than.
Okay.
So we're still sort of figuring out what it is exactly. But I will say it's designed for students that because of differing disabilities, for them to be able to show us more precisely what they can do with language. So there's alternate ways for them to respond. And it's done in conjunction, usually with someone from the special ed department as well as EL, and they work together to score. So it's just a very different way of giving the test. And even the items themselves are designed differently.
Right, got it.
Yeah. Okay, I have just a few more slides and then I'm happy to take more questions. We had talked through this one at the high school. And then just wanted to mention for professional learning related to our EL team specifically. This year, we're continuing to focus on reading and writing instruction. We do need as PLCs at the elementary and then the middle school team and the high school team, which me. We also have a relatively new program called Elevation that's specific to English learner data. It allows us to do visualizations. One of the charts I used earlier in the slide that came straight from Elevation. So we started in last spring, rolling it out to our EL team. And now this fall, we started rolling out to admin, coaches, counselors, and then eventually to all of our certified staff as well. And so our hope for that is to better.
Shaylee, just a second. I don't think your mic is, I'm getting waved at from the booth. I think you need to switch mics. That mic is dead, so switch it. So, I'm sorry, I'm trying to read their arm movements. You're doing better than I was.
Yeah, that's good. How's that?
What's more for the
Yeah, they sound the same. Fine.
All right. So I was talking about Elevation, that it is a EL focused data tool. And one thing that we will use it to do is to better identify instructional groups and to help monitor student progress. So it lets us collect information about each student. Anyway, there's a lot of great things about it. I think it's also going to help us with the next point of collaborating better with staff to help meet the needs of English learners. It's an easier way for us to get information out to all of our certified staff about our English learners. The information's in Infinite Campus, but Infinite Campus isn't always the most user-friendly, and Elevation is much more user-friendly. So some celebrations from the program. First of all, thanks to support from the district and the board in particular, we're able to provide staffing to match the number of English learners in each of our buildings. We continue to be able to meet those needs. Last spring, I think we mentioned to you, we're implementing a program called Salir Adelante. We will be doing this at Ames Middle School starting in January next year. Just recently, we had 4 staff members, 3 certified staff at the middle school and myself that were trained in the program. And we're also partnering with some people from United Way here in Ames. So 2 of their staff members were trained as well. And so I'm very excited that we're finally able to bring this program. It's specifically for Spanish speaking families and their students at the middle school. So look to hear more about that later on. I already alluded to the Elevation data platform, but we'll be bringing that to all of our certified staff in the spring. And then I think I'm down to the final slide with any questions that you might have that we didn't already cover.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Shaylee. Our next discussion item, hang on, I have to refresh, is the community eligibility provision. And that one is Chris.
And good evening, board. I wanted to update you on some recent changes that have been made to the community eligibility provision of the National School Lunch and Breakfast Program and what that means for Ames, and more importantly, what it doesn't mean for Ames. And there's been some confusion on of what this has meant in some national media reports, so much so that the USDA itself held a national webinar, which was the first in my time working with the National School Lunch and Breakfast Program. And the community, the CEP program has always in the past been based on numbers as of April 1st. And if you had a building or a district that was 40% of students who were directly certified free, that you might be eligible to provide universal free meals. They have lowered the percentage down to 25%, but they didn't change anything else in the program because there's no additional federal funds available. So I know there's a lot of numbers on this slide, and I'm not going to go through every one of them, but we'll just look at Ames High School. And these numbers are based on FY23 because obviously April 1st for this fiscal year hasn't happened yet. But as of April 1st, Ames High School had a CEP percentage of 25.98%, which based under the new rules would make it potentially eligible for CEP. The way the CEP program works is that you take a multiplier of 1.6 of the percentage of that particular building. So 1.6% of 25.98 is 41.57. That means of the number of lunches that are served at Ames High School, 41.57% would be reimbursed at the full federal rate of $4.25. So we served just under 82,000 meals last year at Ames High School. So of that, 34,000 would be eligible for full reimbursement of the $4.25. That means that the remainder, the 47,842, would only be reimbursed at 40 cents. However, the district is required to have a dedicated revenue source to make up the difference between the 40 cents and the $4.25. Which means that we would need, we'd have total federal funds produced of $164,000, and we'd need $184,000 of local funds that are just related to Ames High School. Now, where that happens right now is parent paid meals. All school meals would be free, so that parent paid portion goes away. Of our schools, only Fellows and Sawyer would not qualify under the new rules. Our district percentage is 29.32%. Now remember, these are students that are directly identified free. That means they are accessing some other government assistance program that has verified their income. What happens is the reduced category goes away under this program. Right now, our students that are families that are in a reduced status pay 40 cents for lunch, and the federal government reimburses us $3.85 to get to that $4.25. So that takes a big chunk of revenue out for Ames. It's hard to do apples and apples because Fellows and Sawyer doesn't qualify, and they're in our total numbers. But you'll notice that the federal funds end up being $644,000 for lunch compared to $882, which is because that reduced category goes away. Fellows and Sawyer would have to remain under the regular National School Lunch and Breakfast Program. And just for lunch, we would have to come up with almost $600,000 of local revenue. When you put lunch and breakfast together, Because if you provide free lunch, you have to provide free breakfast, and we are providing free breakfast and probably can through the end of this year because of the additional funds we got under COVID. We would have to come up with about $750,000 of local revenue. So the way the program is intended to work, you'll see I have a break even down there. If you see that you have a building that is 62.5% directly certified free, or a district that is 62.5% certified directly free, when you take that 1.6 multiplier times it equals 100%, which means you'll get 100% of the federal reimbursement for all meals in that school. That's why you see a district like Des Moines that may have a few buildings that are at the lower end of that ISP for CEP, but as a district, they're over that 62.5. So they are a CEP district and can provide meals because some of those buildings are up in the 90% and are producing more revenues that can help offset those smaller districts or smaller percentage schools, I should say, within their district. So why did the USDA make this change? It doesn't work in Iowa if you're this low and you're directly free, because we are prohibited from using our general funds to supplement the nutrition fund, nor do we have any other way of generating sustained revenue. Once you enter the program, it is a 4-year certification, and you have to prove to the Iowa Department of Ed and the USDA that you have that sustained local revenue funds. And other states, they can use their general fund. They may have, they may be completely funded by property taxes, and they can have a property tax levy that supports this. So in Iowa, the way that our program is set up, we don't have a way to generate that. Trying to find an outside source that will guarantee us $750,000 a year for 4 years is probably not practical. So I know I always get asked this question, especially when we've had a couple schools that have gotten up closer to that 40%. Mitchell's toyed with it on one side or the other ever since I've been here. And why don't we do it? Well, this is why Ames doesn't do it, and why you see districts like Waterloo, Des Moines, Council Bluffs that are doing it, that are able to do the CEP. There are other of the larger districts that they might have 1 or 2 buildings that are on it, because they've got to that 62.5%. I'd be happy to answer any questions. I didn't want to take a whole lot of time, but I didn't want anybody to be confused as to these changes either.
So Chris, when I was taking math classes, I was always taught to round up. You're saying that Sawyer at 24.96% does not qualify for the 25%?
No, you have to be at 25%. I have to enter the numbers into the state forms, and then the state calculates the percentages.
It's like one student probably, right? Yeah. Okay.
Well, that was really helpful explanation, Chris. So I'm glad that you explained that. I did not understand it at all before. So
if just to clarify, if there was a person who was going to donate a large amount of money and would guarantee it for 4 years, then we'd be able to do it.
Potentially for all schools except, well, we don't know where people are going to fall, where it's going to fall next April.
Yeah.
It would be based on next April 1st. But potentially all the schools except Fellows and Sawyer based on the numbers from last April.
Okay.
So it could be.
Some of ours are so close, they might flip back down under.
Mm-hmm.
So it could be, say, a private donor or something. I mean, is that acceptable to the USDA?
They don't care where we come up with the money now.
Okay.
Yeah. So it sounds like Iowa budget laws are what really restrict us.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
We're probably not the only state that has those rules.
I'm not, but we are restrained by the state policies about how we can use our budget. So
and part of it's spending authority. Even if we were allowed to use the general fund, that doesn't help us on a spending authority basis. So that would be taking spending authority away from the educational program.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
But one could potentially say lobby for a change in legislation to accommodate funding for this.
Sure. Yeah. The federal government could also be lobbied to change that multiplier. So while the USDA had the authority to lower the percentage, the Congress controls that multiplier and how much federal funds are going to be put into the program.
Good point. All right, thank you, Chris. Next discussion item is our Ames Center update, and we'll turn it over to Director Thomas and your team. I do want to let everyone know I have to leave early for an event. So if you see me pop out, please don't be offended. Michelle will take over if needed. That was the good mic, I believe. Yes. Okay. Hello.
Good evening. Thank you all. We're going to start off with the bottom line. So I get to start with the bottom line. So just a little background and to build some foundation. We're going to talk about the property at 1323 Northwestern. It's formerly known as the Lutheran Services Building. The site's about 10 acres and currently there's 5 buildings on the property. 2 of the buildings have reached their life expectancy. There's 2 buildings that are viable, one of which we're focusing on tonight. And the other one is under review for opportunities or potential opportunities for the district here. The newest building was built in 2005, so it's 18 years old. So it's out of its rookie year anyway. It was in use and occupied when we purchased it, but the use and occupancy had tapered off. So as a result, when you're getting close to the end, less attention is paid to the property. Although the building was operational and the lights were on, the utilities worked, I think that there potentially could have been a misconception. It was move-in ready. So I don't think that necessarily lined up with the actual reality of the building. The district started out with the leadership of Director Thomas to be able to define the needed programs. We work with an architect to define the size, scope, and adjacencies of these programs. And Tenfold Architects is here to be able to expand on that, so I won't get into it. After the scope of work was defined, we prepared a cost estimate for the work. And the cost of that, the construction cost for the renovation of that building is $7 million. I went forward and moved to come up with a list of all the items that we would include in this first portion of the project to develop a project budget. This includes the phase 1 renovation costs. Phase 1, we wanted to be able to utilize a portion of the building as soon as we could. And that develops part of the south portion and half of the west portion of the building. A little bit of roof repair I needed to put in there. We've got our fees and I have an allowance for some site improvements, furniture, fixtures, and equipment. And then the second building that we can derive some use out is the gym building. So I wanted to allow some cost in there to be able to utilize that building. And we need to clean it up a little bit. Additional costs, part of the process with purchasing the property and assessing it was to understand what kind of hazardous materials. There is asbestos in 4 of the buildings. So I allotted money in the budget for the removal of that asbestos. I also have an allowance for demolition of 3 buildings. That should be 2 buildings because I actually, one of them's still under review. And apologize, I have a typo in there. It should be 150,000 for the demolition instead of 100. Then we also have a project contingency of 4.8%. And we'll look to be able to receive a payment or a credit from the Inflation Reduction Act of $500,000. That's going to offset our cost for a energy efficient or geothermal system for HVAC system. So that gives us a total bottom line budget of $9 million. I provided a cost breakdown that's in the construction estimating type of format, but significant numbers. Site selective demolition and site costs are just under 10%. And other costs of significance then, the finishes are also about 10%. But the value of the mechanical system, which is plumbing, heating, ventilation, air conditioning, is nearly 50% of the project, and then 15% for the electrical. Focusing in on the big chunk, the HVAC system, there's residential type furnaces that are distributed throughout the building. Those have reached end of their life expectancy, so they're ready to be replaced. Ventilation codes and requirements have changed or been updated since 2005. In addition to that, we want to be attentive to the ventilation needs and sensitivity due to COVID that we experienced then since then. Our proposed system, a geothermal system, we can actually by being able to take advantage of the Inflation Reduction Act, that check that they'll actually, a payment they'll actually give us, really, it gives us a lower cost for a geothermal system than what we could anticipate for a standard boiler chiller type of system. This will allow us to be able to get ductwork and ventilation and air distributed throughout the building with the new layout. So our funding sources then that we're looking to be able to do this are $5 million from PEPL, Physical Plant Equipment Levy, and $4 million from the Secure and Advanced Vision for Education Fund. We're in a fortunate situation here with the PEPL funds because due to the construction program we've undertaken, we've been able to accumulate a fund balance, and we're able to be able to carry that fund balance forward from year to year. As of January or July 1st of 2023, our fund balance was just under 11 million. So we're able to absorb that without sacrificing any future projects that are planned or proposed, or without being able to risk or jeopardize that fund balance. We want to be able to maintain that fund balance so that we don't, so that we can offset any kind of concern with the cash flow. So we're able to do that. And we had some discussion in the facilities committee about prioritization and so on. And that's more so of shifting some of the other, but it's unrelated to this. So we are able to fund this project through the PEPL and maintain that fund balance. And we're in a similar situation with the SAVE fund. And if there's any questions specific to that, I'll have to revert to Chris to be able to answer that. So that's all I have to say. And I think we have questions at the end. So unless there's any particular questions here, we'll go ahead and pass it on to the more exciting portion of the program.
Jerry, one question. The remaining balance, you said it was 11 million and it's 5 million for the physical plant from the PEPL. Does that leave still 11 million or does it leave 6 now?
It'll reduce it by that 5 million. I actually had 1 million already in the budget as kind of a placeholder until we understand the scope of work and then actual cost of the project. But the 5 million will just, it reduces that down.
Got it.
And then it's just a matter of being able to manage that in the future to be able to maintain that balance.
Thank you.
A couple questions. First, can somebody tell me what something more about the Secure and Advanced Vision for Education Fund?
It's the sales tax, local option sales tax.
Oh, okay.
That's the official name of it.
Okay. And we already have this in place, so there's no change, right? Or
Oh, yeah, it's the revenue purpose statement's been voted on several times, but if you're it's actually might have been just before you guys came on the board, the legislature extended it. We had to revote the revenue purpose statement and extended it out to 2051.
okay.
Jerry, I know that we talked reprioritization of some of the projects that may have interfered with the Ames Center project, particularly something at the middle school. There were projects at the middle school that were projected 4 or 5 years out, and there was some concern about bringing those projects closer to current day. Have we reprioritized middle school projects in a way to bring them closer to where we are now?
We'll be able to, as you and I review this closer, we'll be able to define those and then slide them up sooner in the appropriate time frame. So as I'm looking at that, I think of the building in thirds of life expectancy. So 1/3 and 2/3. So we're looking at that 22-year time frame, which puts us right into about 2027. So I had slid that back a year or two, but we should be able to slide it forward again. So we'll continue to work on that to be able to get that in mind.
As far as a time frame, I imagine that if we've gone from $1 million expected to 7 million or placeholder of 1 million, we're also talking about an increase in the amount of time that we're expecting this is going to take, right?
Increase in what?
The amount of time we're expecting this will take.
No, the $7 million in the scope of work in the plan that we have in place will allow us to be able to open the building for full occupancy on August 23rd of 2024.
Okay.
So
great.
all that's
$7 million spent within the next
yes,
10 months.
yes.
Fun.
Talk about some of the programs and services that we're proposing for this space. Started having conversations a year or so ago about different programs that we'd like to expand in the district or services that we might like to add if we had adequate or appropriate space to do so. So the first kind of programming is therapeutic services. So in 2021, we received the therapeutic classroom grant to refine therapeutic services in our elementary schools. So far, we've served 64 students. Through those classrooms, we have realized that we have some need for an offsite location that offers more intentional design to meet safety and other kinds of needs of students who need therapeutic services. And then we also recognize the need to offer some services, specialized offsite services for our secondary, or middle and high school students. Another kind of bucket of need is unique student needs. So special circumstances, situations when students bring weapons or drugs or cause serious bodily injury, and our previous response to that might have been expulsion or something like this, but this offers us a different option for placement for students who continue their education. Also unique situations for students and students who are transitioning from residential placements or hospitalizations, treatment programs, things like that. Students who've experienced significant recent trauma and need a transition space before they move into or back into comprehensive schools. Students who need to finish up credits beyond 4 years and simply aren't willing to go back into our comprehensive high school would be some examples of unique student needs that this space might meet. Our Transition Alliance program serves students with disabilities at the high school level. It's a partnership with Vocational Rehabilitation Services of Iowa. We established this program in 2019. We have over 100 high school students currently being served. We are recognizing a need for authentic yet sheltered experiences to help students transition between those school-based experiences and those workplace experiences. So this property with the proposed renovations would allow us to fulfill some of those needs. And would allow us another space for employer presentations and experiences to prepare kids for the workplace. We have food pantries currently in 3 of our elementary schools. We also provide through donations from community members and other organizations in the community, hygiene supplies, school supplies, winter clothing, shoes, those kinds of things. We have time finding space to store those kinds of things so that we can have them readily available. So we have been able to find some space in this property to help with that storage and distribution. And also this provides an accessible location for families and students who have those kinds of needs. Homeschool assistance program is another area of need. We serve over 300 students through each year through our homeschool assistance program. Currently, that program is renting space in a church basement. They need space for their enrichment classes, a space for offices for their supervising teachers, and then a space to store their curricular resources that are shared with families. And then the final major need was for district professional development space. So the room that we are in right now is one of our few options for large group professional development. So some of the renovations that are being proposed here would offer some additional spaces for professional development for our staff. And then eventually, we also anticipate that we could engage in some business collaborations, perhaps childcare partnerships, community groups could use the space to meet their needs. We could provide some wraparound and educational kinds of services for students and families, like nutrition classes or education, mental health awareness, different things of outreach, that kind of thing. Questions you have about programs and services?
I mean, this is great. Do we have concrete plans right now to begin offering all of these services in August 2024? Okay. I wasn't sure if this, I mean, some of it sounded speculative, some of it sounded concrete.
Let me correct that. So not this slide.
Okay.
The previous slides, yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
There was also, there was also discussion at some point about offering sort of career training and that kind of thing. Is this also going to happen at this point or not right now?
So I think that it depends a little bit on what you mean.
Okay.
I mean, there are lots of things to for career training. So our transition up front.
Okay, right. Yes, absolutely.
Is for sure that.
But not, okay, I had understood that it was more.
Business collaboration, that was kind of what we were talking about with the business collaboration, right?
Okay.
Offering something,
Okay.
career opportunities for students or internship kind of opportunities,
Yes.
right?
Okay, all right.
So hello, my name is Sam Stagg, and I have here with me Carrie Weig, and we are with Tenfold Architecture and Engineering. We are a local architecture and engineering firm here in town, located downtown. So just a little background on who we are. We also have registered interior design as part of our services. And so we've been charged to take all the programs that Dr. Thomas and her team have assigned and are working on and fit them into the existing footprint of the main building on the campus. And we'll talk a little bit more about the site plan and what that and the impact that has on the project. But we'll start here with just talking about the different programs and how they are organized into this particular floor plan. So there are four main quadrants of the building, and north is up. And so I'll refer to the cardinal directions as we walk through the building. So let's starting with the south side. So the bottom side of the drawing, we have administrative services and administrative offices. And so that's also the primary entry of the building, and it is the most, I guess, accessible and the most visible entry point into the building. And so a lot of those spaces are remaining the same in terms of their existing layout. We do have some minor modifications. So that's primary administrative offices. Working around toward the left or the west side, we have secondary therapeutic classrooms and those support spaces. In terms of seclusion rooms, restrooms, we have a kitchenette and serving area and a handful of offices that support that. Moving a little bit to the north, so the northwest quadrant, we have elementary therapeutic classroom and those support spaces as well. So similar layout, it's just a little bit of a larger primary classroom as opposed to two classrooms. Those also were providing access toward the west, which is adjacent to another major parking lot for parent drop off and pickup for those specific needs for those two therapeutic classroom areas. Moving around toward the north, we have in the kind of the corner of the building, we have the pantry area, the food pantry area, a handful of designated storage areas, and that's adjacent to a nearby entry exit door. So for ease of and convenience of getting into the building and working with the users of that particular space. Going toward the full north side, we have the event space for the professional development. We have a handful of spaces of varying sizes, a couple of large meeting rooms, as well as some smaller meeting rooms to accommodate those needs for professional development. Some support spaces like nearby restrooms for that professional development area. And then lastly, toward the east side, we have the homeschool assistance program. And we've been working with Dr. Thomas and her team, as well as the homeschool assistance program team, to develop the different locations of these spaces and proximity with one another, how they circulate within and without the building, and just the different types of just arrangement of those spaces to best support the needs of the users and the teachers. So we'll jump to the next slide.
Sam, on that slide, one question. So for the November 15th, the phase one stuff, which part there is that? I didn't see that broken out.
Great quick question, Dr. Ruppbaum. So as Jerry alluded to, the two areas that we are designating for what we'll call phase one are the south administrative offices and the south area of the west side, which will be a therapeutic classroom space. So those are the only areas that we're touching that will be ready for this fall, middle of November. And what this plan represents is what we're calling phase two. And I'll touch on some of those clarifications later on. But basically, phase two is what will be ready for the fall of 24. We'll jump to the site plan, and Carrie's going to speak a little bit about this.
All right, just to give you a few highlights of what the main building looks like on the campus. As Jerry mentioned, there's several structures currently on the campus. The district is looking at removing the administration building and the garage building. Those are two facilities that have a lot of issues or concerns with them. And so the decision has been made to remove those. And as we've talked about earlier in the presentation, our efforts have focused around the main building facility. So in general, most of the site is going to stay as it is. You have adequate parking available to serve what we projected as the staffing and student needs for the renovations that are proposed. We are going to make some improvements there or recommend some improvements. Just with over time, there's some sidewalks that have heaved. There's some tripping concerns. There's a little bit of cleanup to do to remove items that you would not necessarily want to have, like let's say a fire pit for your students. So there's some cleanup like that. There's some antiquated play equipment that we'll want to get out of the way as well. So then our main goals with the site approach will be just to provide barrier-free facility and access for all. So really looking at those pathways from your vehicle drop-off point to the door, to your classroom, to wherever you're going in the building, to make that a barrier-free situation for your students, staff, and visitors there. So in general, Sam mentioned this a little bit, but on the west side will be drop-off for the therapeutic classrooms, and then some of the more general parking will happen in the southeast lot there. So.
Is the play area getting renovated? Does it need renovation, say for disability purposes?
There are just a couple of minor items that would want to be addressed. Getting a swing in there that's more adaptive to more mobility, for more people of different mobilities would be good. And then there's some space around some of the swings that we'd want to take a look at. In the play structure, there is one step that's a little bit high that may need to be corrected. So we have done a full assessment of all of that. For the most part, things are looking pretty good. There are a few additional items you will want to consider as a district. And you may want to add, and one of our recommendations would be as you move forward is
like adding a piece of equipment that's closer to the ground just to provide variety and to be able to suit the needs of all of your students.
So this is going to be one building that will have children in it from probably kindergarten all the way through 12th grade, right? So will there be, I mean, I imagine that building a building for people of such varying height and also physical capacity and all of that may have challenges, or does it not? No?
That's kind of the part of what we do day in,
Right.
day out, right?
Right,
So, yeah, we're accommodating those and addressing things like the Americans with Disabilities Act. That will be
Right.
a part of our assessment
Right.
and work that we've been proposing. But yeah, we'll accommodate each of those grade levels.
Right.
I think also to address that, we've really had a focus on trying to keep spaces flexible for additional uses into the district's future, and trying to plan ahead for some things that maybe you don't know now, that as programs develop and change and needs change, that you'll have that availability or ability to adapt over time as well.
Yeah,
some of the renovations.
So there's both a large courtyard and a lot of green space. Is that something, are there plans for that?
Yeah, so the courtyard offers a unique opportunity, especially for the therapeutic classrooms that Dr. Thomas has shared, that could be really beneficial for students that may have a higher elopement risk, students that are trying to escape the building or facility or grounds. And so having that ability to have outdoor space, but be contained within, the perimeter of the building itself is a real advantage for some of the programmatic needs for this group. So there will be some minor improvements made there right now. So right now it's green space. If you walked out there, there's a couple of landings outside of the doors, and then Jerry's cleaned it up and planted grass seed this fall. So it will be green and look much cleaner in the spring than it has in the last few years. And then under the improvements, we would be suggesting to make that space accessible. So we would ramp down from the landing spaces and then also provide some hard space. Again, just trying to address all of the mobility needs for the facility.
Right.
All right, and then just quickly, just as a backup, we wanted to let you know that our team has been in and through the facility. So the recommendations we're making are based on not only what we've heard about programmatic needs, but also from hands-on just assessment of all of this. So the building has enough age to it that codes have changed. Some of that is to do with the mechanical systems, as Jerry started and shared at the beginning of this presentation. Some of it also, though, and we'll keep coming back to this, is just improving the accessibility and the way you use the space. And there are just some things that are not meeting today's codes that we are recommending get updated, again, just to provide equal service to all there. So we had two categories in the assessment, things that we were providing to the district saying these are required improvements for occupancy. So improving some of those accessibility and universal design needs, replacing the mechanical systems to meet code requirements. And then there's the modifications as Sam went through for just to meet your basic programmatic needs of all these different pieces that are coming together in this facility. There are some items that we would strongly recommend you consider for improvements in the building. One of them being reducing the institutional feel. If you've walked in there or have been in there, there is a feel, and we really want to work with you to provide spaces that are equivalent to all of your other beautiful district facilities.
So I'm going to just offer just a background of what we've been doing over the past several months. Starting back in June, we had a kickoff meeting with the planning and the planning committee and team. So verifying each of those program needs: elementary therapeutic classrooms, secondary, professional development space, the TAP program, tangible resource management, pantry storage, homeschool, as well as folding in a secondary special circumstance interim placement site within the administrative offices, and also just general administration space and support. So those are all the different things that we've been speaking of, and we just began speaking about those back in June. In July and August, we completed building assessment for the main building and the Audlin building, gym building, and the site. Those included accessibility and universal design review, general code compliance, general conditions of the building, the nuts and bolts of the facilities, structural assessment. We've had our structural engineer walk through and look at parts and pieces just to make sure things are okay. And then also a high-level programming assessment. We also conducted space programming and just review meetings for reuse of the main building to meet the new programmatic needs. That transitioned into the phase one documentation that will be ready for, that's been being ready for the fall of 23. So phase one specifically includes a therapeutic classroom, 2 seclusion rooms, sensory rooms, support spaces, IEP conference room, some flexible rooms, as well as administrative offices. And so that's the area toward the south and the southern area on the west side. And in terms of phase two, jumping to September, we finalized a test fit of the program for the main building, as well as getting approval from Dr. Thomas and her team. And then phase two pricing set for story construction. We've been teamed to story construction, working on this set of drawings, and they've been aiding in budgeting process and the pricing process. And so we did that in September. Also, looking at exploration of building systems, including the geothermal service that Jerry was alluding to earlier. Also did a program review with the homeschool assistance program, both site and building components. We reviewed that with them a couple of times and gone back and forth on the final plan that you saw earlier. In October, looking at phase one, the substantial completion was completed 1st of October. We had a punch list meeting in early October. The final city inspection was happened last week, and also there's one more this week. There's still a handful of minor punch list items that'll be wrapped up no later than next week, according to the contractor just today on a phone call. And then occupancy will be ready for mid-November. The plan to move into that space. Regarding phase two, we have some additional refinement of those documentations for pricing. We've been working on those. Preliminary meeting with the city of Ames last week, and then also continue to work on those construction documents for bidding. And then lastly, our proposed schedule for the remaining months of the project in November. So November 20th is when the next board meeting will be. We're proposing to approve the drawings and set a public hearing date. November 21st, we would issue those drawings for bidding purposes, managed through Story Construction as the construction manager. Those bids would be due December 12th. And then December 18th, we'd hold a public hearing and a board meeting to approve those bids. Then we begin construction after the first of the year, January 2nd, and wrap up by July 31st. So 7 to 8 months of construction, all being ready with the target date of fall of 2024.
One question on that. It's the same one I had in the facilities committee. Dr. Lawson, are you wanting to do this on the 20th? Because the reason this is an issue is it will be the new board that would have to do this vote for the designs. So I just wanted to bring that up to people so they understand that's what we would be proposing.
Yeah, that would be the annual meeting. We're gonna have to.
So the question was kind of, is it all possible to be ready for the first meeting in November, the 6th? And what would the board prefer? It seems like having the existing board do it might make more sense, but I'm open to whatever Dr. Lawson desires.
So I wasn't aware that we would have enough time for the existing board to make the decision. It seemed like that our new folks would have a really difficult decision to make as they are onboarded.
Okay.
So I guess I don't understand where we landed.
So are we saying we'll do
So-
it on the November 6th meeting?
On the
Is
November
that,
6th meeting is my understanding. That's the goal.
Like I said, the question is that feasible for you all?
can you all do that?
To get the drawings to that point, we're going to be kind of pressing it to get it done by the 20th.
I would also, I would argue that the future board needs to be in support of this as well. And I think it's going to be important for new board members to be up to speed and understand what's going on and be able to support the decisions moving forward. So I don't personally see it as a huge issue to approve it with the current board versus the future board.
I kind of was of the opinion that letting the new board own the whole project makes
Agreed.
sense.
Yeah.
But I certainly see, we'll want any new board members to be aware of this
This discussion.
We want them to be aware that that will be a vote they will make as soon as they are sworn in.
Their first.
So we can share the presentation with them.
Absolutely. That's been planned already.
Okay, okay,
Okay.
So you, I'm sorry about that. I could see the panic in your face.
how much coffee?
Stay the course. that we have proposed. Okay.
Yes, keep it the way that it is. Yep, looks good.
Just wanted to check your heart rates.
Doing okay. So that's all we have to share for tonight. So we'd love to have any more questions regarding the facility.
Very exciting to kind of start to see what it's going to look like. So
Yeah,
thanks
it
for
is.
taking the time to be here.
Yeah, our
Thank you
pleasure.
all. Thank you.
All right, the last thing. The last piece, we just wanted to, just point out where the whole plan aligns with our district strategic plan. So specifically, there are a few of the objectives from our strategic plan that I think tie in pretty well with some of the programs and services that we intend to offer here. So the first objective, which has to do with the physical, mental, and emotional health and safety. Our therapeutic classrooms or special circumstances and unique situation, placement, spaces, and resources, and then tangible resources for students, because we do know that caring for people's basic needs has been about objective 3, which has to do with meeting diverse needs. That's really kind of the name of the game of this entire facility, is flexibly meeting lots of different kinds of needs that we aren't currently able to meet as well as we would like to in our existing spaces, because our buildings were designed for different purposes. And then objective 5, which has to do with building stakeholder engagement and support. Our Transition Alliance program offers some great opportunities to collaborate with community stakeholders and bring people together in the school assistance program, business collaboratives down the road, and then some of those outreach kinds of services. And then finally, attracting and retaining developing high quality staff. Again, we are in need of some more professional development space to facilitate our professional work. So our completion timeline, which has already really been covered, is phase 1. The construction, the furniture, the setup, those things are on track to be complete by November 15th. We are still working on staffing and hoping that we get there. And then phase 2, August 23rd of 2024, and that is a contingent, obviously. Final questions that you have?
So what's the November 15th? That's for is for the programming completion?
For the elementary therapeutic class.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Well, thank you all. This is really exciting to see this coming together, and I appreciate you taking the time to come and present to us.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right, that brings us to our public comments on discussion items, and we do not have anyone signed up to speak on discussion items. So I will open our public forum and read our statement on public comments. Residents of the district, students attending the district, parents or guardians of students attending the district, and district staff members may address the board about any topic relevant to the district, whether on the current agenda or not. Those who wish to speak must sign up at the beginning of the meeting. Speaker participation is limited to 3 minutes once per item. The views and opinions of citizens addressing the board do not necessarily reflect those of the board, district administration, or staff. Speakers are to remember that Iowa law prohibits the board from discussing specific employees, students, or their performance. Student speakers will state their name and school. Others will state their name and address. And we do not have anyone signed up to speak in our public forum. And we also do not have anyone signed up to speak via Zoom. So with that, I will close our public forum and move on to our consent agenda.
I move approval of the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Moved by Beerbog, seconded by Winfrey. Superintendent Lawson gives to the district.
Yes, thank you. The superintendent's office received the completed form for and recommends acceptance of the following gifts. A $300 donation from Peter Gaverga and Natalia Rogovska for the benefit of the Ames High FBO AP test subsidies for students. And that is our only gift to the district this evening that I have to report.
Thank you. It was moved by Beerbaum, seconded by Winfrey to accept the consent agenda. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0. Moving on to our action items, we have our new Ames High School change orders.
I move the board approve the change orders for the new Ames High School construction project as presented.
Second.
Moved by Beerbaum, seconded by Franzen. Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0. New Ames High School final acceptance and completion of work for bid packages 06-1, 11-1, 23-1, 31-1, 32-1, 32-2, and 32-3.
I move the board approve the final acceptance of the work for bid packages 06-1, general construction by Lansing Construction Corporation, 11-1, theatrical rigging and equipment by Wenger Corporation, 23-1, mechanical and plumbing by ACI Mechanical Incorporated, 31-1, site development by Construct Incorporated, 32-1, sidewalks and paving by Jensen Builders, 32-2, athletic field work by Musco Lighting Sporting, Iowa Sports Turf Management, and 32-3, exterior improvements by Kaburski Brothers Lawn Care.
Second.
Wait, who was that? Becker? Okay. Moved by Franzen, seconded by Becker. Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0. New Ames High School construction project substantial completion.
I move the board approve the substantial completion of portions of the high school building construction as presented.
Second.
Moved by Beerbaum, seconded by Franzen. Discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0. And I'm so sorry, I'm going to have to leave and I'm going to pass the rest of this over to Michelle.
I really thought I was going to be able to
I'm
make.
sorry, it was so close.
We have moved on to our student representatives, board and staff items. And first, do we have anything from our student reps? Thank you for being here. Items from the board. I did not note any items that are requests from the board for the staff. Does anyone else have anything they want to add?
I was personally curious as we were talking about it, about seclusion rooms, what kind of, I mean, I thought it was too much detail probably and a little bit off topic, but I was curious about how we're using seclusion rooms now and how we're going to be using them in the new facility.
Is that information that you can provide?
I didn't want to ask, it seemed off topic during the presentation, so I just
Provided it.
So is that something that you like provided?
I mean,
At a next meeting or to
if information could be provided at some point. Thank you.
Sure.
Anything else?
Just want to be clear, info on how they're currently using, how they'll be using the
Yes, right,
facility.
yeah.
Perfect.
And items from the superintendent.
Yes. Sorry. So good evening, board. Just quickly, so there's been quite a bit of discussion and concern related to the recent incidents that have occurred in our schools. And so beyond what has been shared already, I just wanted to provide a brief update to you all on what we've learned, let you know how the district team is supporting schools, and then talk about some of our shared plans moving forward. So as you know, well, you may not know, so the first 5 to 6 weeks of school started really smooth. And in the recent weeks, there's been an uptick in the number of fights that we've seen across schools. And so I took a deep dive into the data to really try to find out or discover what was happening. And so one of the things that I've learned is that fights have not been exclusive to any race, program group, gender, age, or grade level. So we are still actively working with school leaders and teams to mitigate fights and all other acts of violence within our district. This is and will be an ongoing effort. We've supported principals with student level setting around expectations for behavior. Plan school-wide communication that will go out directly to students as it relates to those expectations. We've met with principals and talked through more structured and active campus monitoring. We've worked with our districts, one of our district's athletic directors to review athletic event procedures to ensure attendee safety. We've launched our P3 initiative to support anonymous incident reporting, and we've asked students and staff alike across our district to say something if you see something. So one of the things I'd like to just call out again is that fear has no place in our schools. And the emotional and physical safety of our students and staff are paramount. In terms of one of the things that I've learned, we need to increase in adult involvement. And so with that, I'm requesting that every adult in our district take an active role in addressing and eliminating language and actions that are inappropriate for the school setting, language that is offensive, language that is harmful or disrespectful to any member of our school community. We need to strengthen our support. And so it's not one person's responsibility to check in on every student. And what we've seen is that our administrators have taken a huge role in this work. And so we're expecting that each and every one of our staff members play a part in noticing, acknowledging, and offering support to each and every one of our students. And we also like to see strengthened connections. All of our students want to feel seen by someone who matters to them, like a parent, trusted adult, teacher, coach, or director. And with that, while we're willing to provide high levels of support to ensure all of our students thrive, we will also hold anyone accountable who threatens the safety of members of our school community. We will continue to work alongside our schools to ensure they are safe spaces that are focused on learning. And so that's just a brief update for now. But again, we're continuing to work with our principals and school teams.
Thank you, Dr. Lawson. The next item on our agenda is the board planning calendar. The board will convene for special meetings at 5:30 p.m. on October 26th and 30th. And our next regular meeting is November 6th at 5:30. Any other updates that we need to discuss on the board planning calendar? Nope. We will now be taking a 5-minute, 2-minute, okay, 2-minute break before we move into a work session. At this time, our broadcast will be ended. Thank you very much.